Alright, what's going on, guys? So, in this little video right here, I got my phone on Do Not Disturb, so the audio should not get screwed up. We're going to go ahead and do my annual NHL trade deadline review. We're going to review every single trade from the trade deadline. We're going to go as far back as the Dion Phaneuf to Ottawa trade. Also, I got to mention to all current subscribers that are keeping up with my series and whatnot. This will be, I think tomorrow I'm going to go back to normal uploading schedule. It's been very hectic the past couple weeks, especially with the trade deadline and all that good stuff coming up. I've been posting videos besides, like NHL 18, whatever. So right now, this will be the last video before I go back to normal scheduling, and then we'll go from there. Anyways, we're going to go over the NHL trade deadline. Every single trade since Dion Phaneuf. So. First trade we got, obviously, the Kings acquiring Dion Phaneuf and Nate Thompson for the Senators for Gaborik and Nick Shore. Now, people might disagree with me on this, but I would disagree with you because I personally think the LA Kings won this trade. Oops, let me just got crap on there. Here's why the Kings won this trade. They gave up a cap dump of Gaborik and Nick Shore. Nick Shore's, all right, he might be something for the Senators, but they were able to unload Marian Gaborik, who's basically almost a negative asset now, and get Dion Phaneuf with salary retention from Ottawa. So I think the Kings won that trade going forward. Trade after that, Polka for DiDomenico. I mean, I guess the Senators won because Polka's young. I think Polka's younger than DiDomenico. I don't see him doing anything for the Blackhawks. And Polka was a guy that was assumed to be not bad a couple years ago. He's pretty bad now. So I don't know. Men's to men's. I'm going to go ahead and say the winner would be Ottawa because I think Polka's better than DiDomenico. February 15th, the Blues acquired Nikita Soshnikov for a fourth-round pick. For a fourth-round pick from Toronto in 2019. Basically, Nikita Soshnikov, again, another one of those Leafs prospects that were completely overhyped and said to have oodles of trade value when they were younger, and then they turned out to be nothing. Another example, fine example of that is Kirby Reichel, Victor Louvre, all those guys. And I'm sure there's going to be more to come after that. But anyways, I digress. I'm not taking shots at Leafs fans. I'm taking shots at particular Leafs fans who told me a year ago that Nikita Soshnikov was worth Rick Nash and a first-round pick. Shout out to that guy. Anyways, again, I digress. I think the winner of this trade... I'm going to go ahead and give it to St. Louis. Now, the Toronto Maple Leafs got a fourth-round pick for a guy that was in and out of the lineup, which is you know what? Yeah, on that premise, I'm going to say Toronto did get the better of that deal because they cleared up a roster spot, and they don't really have a lot of those because they do have a crowded forward core. And they got a fourth-round pick out of it, when in reality they probably should have got a fifth or a sixth. Excuse me. So I'll actually give that one to Toronto. That was actually an impressive move by them. Capitals acquired Michael Kempny for the Blackhawks for a third-round pick in 2018. Really, Washington? I'm giving that one to Chicago. Now, Kempny's not bad, and he's relatively young, too. I think he's, 24, 25? Maybe even younger than that, I don't know. But Chicago got a third-round pick for a guy that's a sixth or seventh defenseman. That's pretty damn good. I'm going to give that one to the Blackhawks. Hands down, they won that trade. And they got it for this draft, too. In 2018 draft, one of the deepest drafts in NHL history. Flyers acquire goalie Peter Mrazek from the Red Wings for a conditional fourth-round pick and a conditional third. I'm going to actually... I'm going to say the Flyers won this trade because I think Peter Mrazek probably could have gotten a little bit more than a fourth and a third from a less desperate team. Because Detroit knew, and Ken Holland is a pretty smart GM. He knew, because Brian Elliott, I believe it was, that had just gotten hurt before they made this trade. That's why they got Peter Mrazek. So he knew, all right, they need this guy. So I'm going to bargain with them a little bit or something like that. Wait, no. Wait, what? That doesn't even make sense. I just brain fucked myself. Because they... shit. I lost my train of thought. I was actually going somewhere with that. I'm going to go ahead and just say the Flyers won. Because I thought Mrazek could have gone for more. I think the Red Wings were desperate to trade Mrazek. And if they would have traded him a year earlier, they probably could have gotten more out of him. So I think the Flyers won that trade. And Mrazek's actually a pretty solid goalie. The Bruins get Holden in exchange for Raul Guerra and a third-round pick in 2018. I think the Rangers won that trade based off the premise that we're rebuilding. A third-round pick was a lot more value. And Raul Guerra, who's not terrible, he's 24. I hate phone ringing. Raul Guerra's not bad. He'll never really be anything in the NHL. Maybe a 7th, 6th defenseman on a poor team. But the fact that we got a third-round pick for a guy we traded a fourth-round pick for, I think it's pretty good. And a guy we weren't going to use anyways for the rest of the year. Moving on, the Sharks acquire Eric Fair from the Maple Leafs for a 7th round pick in 2020. So Eric Fair was traded for a 15-year-old. Again, Toronto won that trade based on the fact that they were able to clear up a roster spot, a guy with a cap hit they weren't going to use. But the Sharks, I guess you can give them kind of credit. I'm not going to say they won the trade, but I guess they did a good job of getting depth. But in the end, Toronto, 7th round picks in 2020. Yeah, you know what? I'm going to say San Jose won that trade right now, not Toronto. I mean, yeah, they got the asset for someone they weren't using, but still, I feel like that's a little bit. The Capitals acquired Jakub Jarabek from the Canadiens for a 5th round pick. I think Washington won that trade. I thought Jarabek was worth a lot more than a 5th round pick. Given the right time, right minutes, and then the right system, I think Jarabek can actually be a pretty good defenseman. The Kings acquire forward Tobias Reeder and Scott Wedgewood from the Coyotes for Darcy Kemper. I'm going to go ahead and say right away LA won that trade. The Coyotes already have a couple goalies. I guess they maybe saw the value in Kemper over Ronta maybe going forward because Kemper's a little bit younger. But the Kings got Tobias Reeder, who could be a good third, even second liner, but a third line forward for a deep playoff run. Tobias Reeder, some people might think of him as more of a goal scorer, like a depth goal scorer, but he's actually quite a good penalty killer and a good defensive forward at that. Panthers acquire acquire forward Frank Vatrano from the Bruins for a 3rd round pick in the 2019 draft. I think Boston won that trade hands down. They got a 3rd round pick for a guy that was fighting for 4th line minutes and not really producing the way they expect him to, at least comparative to the years previous. I think this year he's got 2 goals in 28 games, whereas he had a hat trick in one of his first career games. So just not what they thought he'd be at. I think Vatrano's also 24, 25 years old, so he's getting up there. Maybe things will work out for him in Florida. Excuse me. And he'll be worth that. Oh, I can't stop yawning. Maybe he'll be worth that 3rd round pick. But I think right now the Bruins definitely won that trade. They also cleared up a roster spot for Rick Nash, who they acquired a day later, maybe 2 days later. The Devils acquire Michael Gravin from the Rangers in exchange for Yegor Rykov and the 2nd round pick of the 2018 draft. Call me biased, but I think the Rangers won this trade. Because we got a 2nd round pick and the Devils' best defensive prospect for a UFA, basically. Now, if the Devils go far with Gravner, maybe they win this trade. But I think right now the Rangers won this trade because they got a B-, B-level prospect, as well as a 2nd round pick that can convert into another B prospect. Penguins acquired Derek Brassard. They also acquired like 60% of his contract as opposed to the full thing. Vincent Dunn, Tobias Lindbergh, a 3rd round pick. The Senators got Ian Cole, Philip Gustafson, 2018 first and a 2019 third. The Golden Knights got Ryan Reeves and a 4th round pick for retaining salary. I think Vegas was the biggest loser in that trade because they got a contract in Ryan Reeves, so they're paying him to basically do nothing unless he's playing. And a 4th round pick to retain 40% of Brassard's salary, which I believe comes out to 1.7 because 40% of 5. I'm not a mathematician, but I believe 1.7. That sounds right. I think that's what I saw. I could be wrong. The biggest winner is going to be Ottawa because they were able to flip Ian Cole for another 3rd round pick. So really it was Brassard, Dunn, and Lindbergh in a 3rd for Gustafson, a 1st, and 2 thirds. I think that's a pretty good deal for Ottawa, considering Brassard really wasn't going to be much for them in the future. I think the Penguins did a great job of getting a guy like Derek Brassard and fitting it in. And I think Brassard's going to be awesome for the Penguins. And I hate that that's a thing because Brassard was my favorite Ranger when he was here. And now he's the Penguins' 3rd line center, so you got to expect the guy to just go absolutely off. But I think the biggest winner in that trade is Ottawa. They were able to ship a guy out. Now, I think the Senators were a big loser at the deadline because they didn't sell shit when they should have. They sold Ian Cole and Derek Brassard. That's it. They didn't really make any other trades beside that. And they should have sold a lot more. I thought they should have traded Hoffman Smith and at least considered more deeply in trading Erik Karlsson if the price was right. But at least they won this trade, in my opinion. The Islanders acquire defenseman Brandon Davidson from the Oilers for a 3rd round pick. I mean, Davidson wasn't being used too much by the Oilers. So in a sense, the Oilers won, but the Islanders have a history of getting random guys like Brandon Davidson and making him pretty good. I think Davidson is 24, 25 years old, so it's a good get by the Islanders. They do have a crowded defense as it is. I do believe Boychuk did just get hurt, though, so maybe this is a good acquisition for the Islanders. But for right now, I'm going to say the Oilers won that trade, although it is certainly close in the Islanders' favor if, in fact, Boychuk is injured. The Bruins acquire Rick Nash from the Rangers in exchange for Ryan Spooner, half of Bolesky's contract, Ryan Lindgren, a first-round pick in the 2018 draft, and a seventh-round pick that's 2019, not 2018. Again, I'm going to go with the Rangers winning this trade because we're going to lose Nash for nothing. And the fact that we were able to get a B++ defensive prospect in Ryan Lindgren, a first-round pick, and a seventh-round pick, as well as Ryan Spooner, who had 2 assists in his debut, is only 26 years old, a center, which is what we need. We get half of Bolesky's contract, which sucks, but if we buy Bolesky out, the Bruins pay for half of Bolesky's cap hit as well as we pay for the other half. That's actually how that works. Now, if the Boston Bruins win the Stanley Cup, you can make a case for them winning this trade. However, I firmly believe the Rangers won this trade. That's not even being biased because I was very against this trade at first until I looked a little bit deeper into it. I still think we could have gotten better value out of them, but I'll take this trade. I definitely will take this trade. I still think we have too many defensemen. I would have liked a forward prospect, a.k.a. Trent Frederick, but who am I to judge? The Maple Leafs acquired Thomas McLellan and Kyle Baun from the Canadiens in exchange for Kirby Reichel, Renat Valiev, and a second-round pick. The Canadiens definitely won this trade. Buchanan's making $6 million. I believe they retained half his salary. If not, they retained some portion of it. But they got Kirby Reichel, a guy that could be a cusp, depth forward in the NHL, maybe third or fourth liner at best at this point. He was actually part of the Rick Nash trade. He was the first-round pick the Rangers sent to Columbus, and it turned out to be Kirby Reichel. We got a third-round pick from Columbus. That turned out to be Pavel Buchnevich, so we're doing something right, Rangers. But the reason I say the Canadiens won this trade is not a shot against the Maple Leafs. I think they did an awesome job of making that center depth of theirs even deeper and getting a guy like Thomas Buchanan that has a lot of playoff experience. But the Canadiens basically got a cap dump. I guess Reichel's a C+ prospect. Renat Valiev's a nobody. That's just a roster spot right there. And a second-round pick. So I think that was good. I think you can make a case that both teams won this trade. It was just a good trade for both teams, but in the long run, especially if that second-round pick turns out to be something and Reichel does become an NHL forward, I think the Canadiens do win that trade. The Blue Jackets acquire Zach Letestu from the Predators in exchange for a fourth-round pick. I'm going to say no. Nashville didn't win that trade because they sent Aberg to Edmonton. I believe they just got Letestu. I'm going to say Columbus won that trade in a buyer's market. Excuse me. Letestu's been a Blue Jacket before, and he's been a quite good one at that. And I can see him fitting in well under Tortorella. So I'm going to say Columbus won that trade. Even though the Predators got a fourth-round pick for nobody, but you could argue that was Pontus Aberg for a fourth-round pick in the end. So kind of feel that. The Predators acquired Bolig and Grosenick from the Sharks for a sixth-round pick. The Sharks won that trade. They traded 2 guys they weren't using for a sixth-round pick. They got an asset. And I don't see Bolig or Grosenick playing for the Predators this year. Unless Rene and Saros get injured, I don't think we see Grosenick. Jackets acquire Ian Cole from the Sens in exchange for Nick Mautry and a third-round pick in the 2020 draft. Again, Ottawa gets future assets for a guy that we're using. Ottawa wins. I'm looking at these trades in more of a long-run spectrum as opposed to short-term. Because short-term, obviously, the Blue Jackets won this trade. But if we're looking at the long-term spectrum, I'm trying to go based off of that. I'm trying to be consistent with that. Preds acquire Ryan Hartman and a fifth-round pick for Chicago in exchange for Victor Edsel. Don't know who that is. A first-round pick and 2018, a fourth-round pick. I think Chicago fleeced Nashville. Not that Hartman's a bad player. I think Hartman's good for Nashville. I think he'll be a good third, fourth liner for them. You could argue that Hartman's a solid 15-20 goal scorer. But Chicago got a first-round pick, a fourth-round pick, and maybe a D or C prospect. Again, for a team that's trying to remodel, they're trying to bring in new pieces. And the Hawks are so used to buying that maybe it's good that they're selling for once, kind of like the Rangers. They needed to sell. So I think that's a good trade for Chicago. I think they definitely won that trade. But who knows? Maybe Hartman will stay in Nashville longer than we think, and he'll be a 15-25 goal scorer in his career. Who knows? The Jets are getting Stastny from the Blues in exchange for a 2018 first and a rights to Eric Foley. I'm going to give it to St. Louis because they got a first-round pick for a guy that was just going to walk and a prospect I know nothing about. Canucks acquire Lepsic for Philip Holm. I'm going to say the Canucks won this trade because the Golden Knights have a lot of defensemen as it is. I don't really see a need for them to have Philip Holm, and Lepsic was playing for them. So I think the Canucks won that trade. Yeah, I'm not even going to judge this trade because those are just two nobody. That's just a minor league swap. Jason Chimera for Chris Wagner. The Islanders won the shit out of that trade. Jason Chimera is 40 years old. I don't really see how it's going to be much of a help to the Ducks, considering the Ducks' problem right now is their forwards are kind of slow outside of Ricardo, Keller, Cogliano, and Kessler. Those are three guys that are quick, but other than that, they're kind of slow-ish. Silverberg's up there, I guess. I don't know. I think... Yeah, Silverberg, I guess you could say, is up there. I just think Anaheim would have been better off with a guy like Wagner as your fourth-line center instead of Chimera on your fourth-line left wing. I think the Islanders won that trade. Jets get Joe Morrow from the Canadiens for a fourth-round pick. The Canadiens won the shit out of that trade. Joe Morrow was not really that good. Canadiens get Mike Riley from the Wild in exchange for a fifth. I think the Canadiens won that trade because Mike Riley was one of the most sought-after college UFAs. Opted to go to Minnesota, not for a roster spot, but because he's with the college of Minnesota and he's from there. I think that was stupid on Riley's part from the get-go. He should have signed somewhere where he had an opportunity. Not Minnesota that had an incredibly crowded defensive core where he really would not see a whole lot of ice. Flames get Nick Shore from Ottawa in exchange for a 2019 seventh. I'm actually going to give that to the Flames. I know Ottawa got rid of a guy that was doing nothing, but Nick Shore is relatively young and could be something for the Flames for all we know. Nick Shore was acquired from LA. Penguins get Josh Jurish for Greg McKegg. I think the Penguins won that trade because Greg McKegg is not that good. I don't know why Carolina did that. Maybe they value minor league scoring a little bit more than I thought. Who knows? Bruins get Tommy Wingles from the Hawks in exchange for a conditional fifth-round pick. Blackhawks won because they got rid of a guy they weren't going to use. Gaudette and Ramage for Trevor Murphy. And again, just nobody's right there. Okay, this trade pissed me off because I'm a very, 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 very big Ryan Graves fan. I have his fucking Wolfpack jersey. I love Ryan Graves. I don't know why we went after Chris Bigras. We have a crowded defensive core as it is. Why are we trading our best defensive prospect, arguably, going into this season for a guy that's on and off with the Colorado Avalanche? Now, granted, Bigras has experience and Graves doesn't. But I value Ryan Graves more than I value Chris Bigras. Graves being a year younger and more of a defensive defenseman, big, hard slap shot, a guy the Rangers don't have. The Rangers don't have a shooter from the point. Ryan Graves could have been that. And we traded him for Chris Bigras, who I guarantee you will not see the ice with the Rangers. So I think that was a stupid trade on the Rangers standpoint. And the Colorado Avalanche definitely won that trade. You guys are going to love Ryan Graves. Trust me, I've watched him play a bunch of times. I've been scouting him forever. He's a beast. You guys are going to like him very much. Patrick Maroon to the Devils for a third-round pick and Joey Dudek. I'm going to say the Devils won that trade. And I know this is inconsistent considering the fact that I've been saying futures more valuable than potential UFAs, but I say that because I feel like one, Maroon's going to fit in well with the Devils and re-sign, but two, it was an unnecessary trade by the Devils, by the Oilers. It's been pretty clear that Maroon was looking to stay with them and wasn't doing terrible with them. So why trade him away and take the risk of him not re-signing with you? I don't know. I just think the Devils might have gotten the better end of that deal. The Jackets get Vanek from the Canucks for Tyler Mott and Jussi Jokinen. Blue Jackets won that trade. Trust me. Mott is not going to be anything. Sharks get Evander Kane from the Sabres from a conditional first, fourth, and Dan O'Regan. If the Sharks re-sign Evander Kane, they won the shit out of that trade. If they don't, the Sabres won just based off the fact they get assets. The Knights get Thomas Tatar for a first, a second, and a third. A third in 2021. They got him for a fucking 14-year-old. I think Detroit won that trade, but at the same time, Vegas, you can make a case for them winning that trade. I'm going to give it to Vegas for now, because I think Tatar's a beast. And now the big one. The big one. Lightning acquire Ryan McDonough and JT Miller from the Rangers for Vladimir Nemestikov, Libor Hajek, or Hasek, I don't know how, I think it's Hasek they've been calling him. Brett Howden, a 2018 first, and a conditional first in 2019. The condition is if they win the Stanley Cup this year or next year, that turns into a first-round pick in 2019. If not, it's a second-round pick. Here's the deal. We have enough defensemen, so I feel like Hajek was a little unnecessary. I feel like if we would have gone after Howden and Radish or a good young forward, it would have been a little bit better for the Rangers, but let's agree to disagree on that one. I think the Rangers did good, but I think the Lightning won the trade. Here's why. Those are going to be two late first-round picks. 2. Nemestikov is going to be replaced by Miller easily. Nemestikov, now, I saw something yesterday. Nemestikov's stats are pretty close to JT Miller career-wise. Okay. Nemestikov has played on a team with Steven Stamkos, Nikita Kucherov, Andre Palat, Victor Hedman, Tyler Johnson. He's played with all these guys. JT Miller's played with Matt Zuccarello, 39-year-old Marty St. Louis, post-concussed Rick Nash. I think he had a year with Brad Richards. No, he didn't. He played 2 games with Brad Richards. I guess Chris Kreider, but comparative to those other guys, they're really doing much. Zibanejad and Stepan, again, not nearly the guys I just named. So Miller, I don't care if anyone says Miller's a lot better than Vlad Mestikov. If you watch JT Miller play, you'd agree with me on that one. Miller's a little inconsistent, but when he's on his game, he is one of the most dynamic forwards on the Rangers. In terms of skill set, vision, he just does everything right when he's on his game. And Ryan McDonough, they get a year and a half of Ryan McDonough for that. That's pretty impressive. The Lightning, I don't say the Lightning don't win this year and next year, but again, you never know. I'm actually gonna give that trade to Lightning, not the Rangers. But I'm happy with what the Rangers got back. I am. I'm not gonna say I'm not happy, but I think if we're being fair here, a 24-year-old JT Miller or 28-year-old Ryan McDonough, 2 guys they can technically keep, not bad at all. But it's my opinion. You guys comment down below your thoughts on my review for this trade deadline, and I will see you guys in the comment section. Thank you all for watching. I'll see you in the next one. Peace.